For a closer look at these midterm elections, let's bring in Peter Mathews, a professor of political science at Cypress College in Los Angeles. Peter Mathews, thanks for joining us. What did you make of
Good to be here. Good afternoon.
This Biden address, this Biden plea?
It was pretty remarkable, but it was also expected, and he is emphasizing the fact that there's a threat to democracy is the number one issue, as many experts are saying. It's a refusal of one part of the Republican Party, the MAGA part of the party, to accept defeat in an election when they lose. That's a real problem for democracy because the winner and the loser have to agree that there's a new system, a new government in place, and there should be a continuity. And we didn't have that this time back in 2020, and it's continuing till this 2022 election. That's the biggest danger. So the president was right in emphasizing it, and we hope and pray that things will work out and people will accept the election results as they come out this coming week.
Well, typically the midterm results go against the government, as I understand it, particularly Democratic presidencies. Are we going to see that here?
Yes. Yes, it is true. That's typical over the last several elections, and we see that the party in power in the presidency loses seats generally in the midterm election, and this may not be an exception. It's going to be very close, however. I will tell you, just 2 months ago in June, or 3 months ago, the Democrats had a 7-point lead in the generic poll when voters were asked, do you prefer Democratic control of Congress or Republican control? It was 7 points ahead Democrat. Today, it is dead heat at 46%, 46%. The country is very divided. It's very firm in its beliefs, and there's a lot of acrimony going on. So we don't really know exactly how it will come out. If the young people vote, for example, in large numbers, as they did in the last midterm election, the 18 to 30-year-olds, Democrats will win back or keep the House and win a few seats. But other than that, if they don't vote as much as we think they may not, we fear they may not, we're going to have a real problem here for the Democrats because the Republicans will probably take the House. They may not take the Senate. That's also going to be very close. And we're looking at a real amazing election that's going to be very, it'll have a major impact on this whole history of the country in the next few years.
Now, the biggest short-term problem for the Biden administration seems to be inflation, a worldwide problem, obviously. Democrats have been calling this Putin's price hike. Do you think that argument will wash?
Well, it is true that this war in Ukraine and the resulting embargo that was put on Russia and also the oil supplies being cut back by the Saudis and the OPEC, that has caused gas prices to skyrocket here in the United States. They went down a little bit in the Midwest and South and the East Coast, but in the West Coast, it's way up there at $6 a gallon still. And it's very, very expensive for people to be able to drive. And so, Biden trying to deflect by saying it's Putin's gas costs. I'm not sure that's going to really work in that sense because he's the one who's the president. He's in the presidency. And the American people hold the president accountable for the economic situation. And inflation is very high overall. It's been about 8%. It's starting to level off a little bit in most of the products except for gasoline and a few other things. Food prices have been up for a long time. So I'm not sure that this came in time, even if food prices level off now, in time for a 6-day-away election. And I think people will remember what they've been suffering through. We'll have to wait and see, though. It's possible Democrats could pull off a very, very narrow victory in the Senate and possibly hold on to the House, but unlikely that they'll hold on to the House. We'll have to wait and see. It's very close.
Does Joe Biden's performance and these accusations he's not fully on top of the job because of his age and he's a bit frail, will they have an influence on this result?
It could have an influence on some of the independent voters. The Republicans and Democratic voters are pretty much set in their voting patterns right now. They're going to go with what they have. They've already voted. Many of them already voted in the early elections. But those who are swing voters, a very small percent, maybe 3 or 4%, could still be persuaded, and it could affect them possibly. But the president has actually accomplished some things, too. He's gotten unemployment way down to 3-point-something%. He's got something going on with the COVID situation is starting. It came down for a while, and now we got variants. So there's some challenges as well. And I think the middle group, that's the swing vote, is going to determine everything. It includes suburban women, by the way. If suburban women, American women who are college-educated, mostly white women living in suburbia, normally Republican supporters, if they go back to the Republican Party this time, then, of course, the Republicans will win the majority. But if they stay with the Democrats, as they did back in 2020, then the Democrats have a chance, a fighting chance.
And what's the impact for Donald Trump? In some races, he's helping the candidates, others not so much. Will his presence at the top of the Republican part help or hurt them in these elections? And what does it mean for his run at the presidency if he goes again?
Well, the first question, will it help or hurt this election? I think is doing both. He was able to get a lot of his endorsed candidates elected in the primaries against more moderate Republicans who probably would have been stronger in the general election. But yet again, look at Carrie Lake in Arizona. She's a very Trump supporter, big Trump supporter, and she's been very vociferous in her claims against saying the election was stolen, the 2020 election. And yet she's actually could pull this off. She's dead heat tie right now with the Democratic opponent. She could become the next governor of Arizona. So I think Donald Trump helps in certain races. He hurts in others. And we'll have to wait to see how everything breaks down. One more thing I should say. Even though in 2012, Democrats won more votes for the Congress than Republicans, Republicans won more seats. And that's to do with gerrymandering, with drawing district lines, and the legislatures that are dominated by the Republican Party draw the lines to make it more favorable toward the Republican Party, and that gives them more seats than what population that they have. That's a thing called gerrymandering. It's an unfair advantage that one party has over the other in drawing the district lines, and some of that's still going on today, and that could have an impact as well.
Professor Peter Mathews from Cypress College in Los Angeles, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.